Sequential reality is no reality.
And Kairut said, I heard a city person in a real sincere voice, after describing a certain problem they had, ask, does this make any sense? I wish I could have asked him the proper response. Does any problem make any sense?
And Kairut said, no change ever occurs without the assistance of D-force, drastic events. There be no such creature as a gradual, agreeable revolution.
And Kairut said, out of a locker room area in the
who pay the most attention to it.
And Kairut said, once heard a guy in the city say that he had to hurry away from a brewing argument before a fight broke out in his brain.
And Kairut said, in the city, solutions inevitably become part of the problem.
And Kairut said, if you're mad at something, it won't speak to you and tell you what it knows.
And Kairut said, the past is the glue pot of officious obligations.
And Kairut said, if they couldn't talk about their lives, most people could hardly stand it.
And Kairut said, engines and people have a sweet spot where they operate with maximum power and optimal efficiency.
And Kairut said, a real revolutionist doesn't simply want to get well. He wants to become unnaturally better.
And Kairut said, don't forget now, talk has almost nothing to do with it.
And Kairut said, yet another sterling example that makes one so happy for the continued existence and support of city life. I heard one man announce, yes, we're open 24 hours. And another asked, you mean a day?
And Kairut said, if there were truly any serious sense of honor in the city, those who bungled and attempted suicide would be so humiliated they would immediately kill themselves.
And Kairut said, never brag about anything before you have given it away. No possession is worthy of comment until you've been able to dispose of it.
And Kairut said, beware the MasterCards of the mind.
And Kairut said, anyone at all downhearted should be shot or shot at so as to better appreciate what real disappointment is about.
And Kairut said, I hate to break the news to him, but the closest city folks are going to get to building a thinking machine will be a computer whose memory can't be reached and who resists reprogramming.
And Kairut said, to truly act, one must know that it's all an act. Action without the knowledge that it's all an act is merely reaction.
And Kairut said, a real revolutionist might even make himself uneasy.
And Kairut said, if a revolutionist doesn't appear to be doing much, it may be that there's not much to do.
And Kairut said, I guess the only bad thing about being a revolutionist is that there is no longer anything or one to rebel against. I said, I think.
I'm going to pick up two or three areas I've talked about the last 2 or 3 times we were together. In the short time we have on the abbreviated version is why I'm talking fast on Friday night. As far as the last few months, I can always say this, but I'm going to say it again. As long as the last few months, I could point out that a real useful piece of absolutely absurd from the City View data is about the overlapping. And that, for the time being, I can say a part of the secret, a part of the very things that people such as you will assume think you're after is in simply the overlapping. And not only the way in which I describe sort of metaphorically, and then otherwise human vision and bringing things into clear perspective by the place in which bifocal vision overlaps. But then in another more direct verbal ways to point out that the overlapping in the areas that you know about, the stuff you already know, is where it overlaps. All right, that in conjunction with something I was talking about night before last. All right, do you understand, based upon following, assuming you were trying to follow what I was talking about overlapping, that things are arranged in life to keep man from seeing how things overlap? Things are simply arranged that way. And things are also arranged in such a way as to give the distinct impression that there are, at least through bifocal vision, real and metaphorical. I can do it both ways, which I guess I will. To keep man believing that they are seeing very distinct contours of frontiers between everything, between everythings and everything that seems to be oneself and not oneself. Those of you who were tuned into the station night before last, I believe it was, you remember I drew one of my little figures about a guy standing there and the contour, that it's the sensation that you are somebody, and then what would be all of this number, the contour of apparently where you touch out there. And so that my old equation of everything, then all of this would apparently be where not the rubber meets the road, but where you meet but where you meet reality, where you meet everything that is not you. I'm trying to get you to see the two things put together is that the secret lies. Part of the secret, as you would look at it now, if I could describe it or tried to describe it in some simplistic terms, is much of what you think might be lacking. That might be the touchstone, the Rosetta Stone, that if you knew it, you'd be close to finding out what it is that I know. That a piece of the secret lies where everything overlaps, in conjunction with the fact that human consciousness, quite materially, quite physically, eyesight itself, and otherwise, as I'll get into, gives to bifocal vision, three-dimensional consciousness, the distinct impression, and I'm being charitable to say impression because in the city it's a fact, it's reality, that there are distinct contours. All right. The obvious part, let me start, or it should be. Ordinary life would not operate. Science could not operate. Ordinary walking around consciousness would not operate. Taking vision again in the five senses as being, by most accounts, the largest input of information, of humans simply orienting themselves in life. All right? You have got to have the distinct impression between stuff. Look how many of you are wearing glasses for the very reason that you look around physically and it blurs. And some of you, I assume, I'm not picking on you, people out in life I know, their vision is so bad without their glasses they actually bump into stuff. That is, there is a blurred distinction between the contour of me and out there. But in what seems to be science, technology, being able to apparently strive to manipulate the environment for life, to change the planetary conditions, scientifically, now we're not talking about just visually, although I assume everybody understood the importance of that. You have got to be able, driving an automobile, walking down the street, to distinguish the contours between your foot and the gutter, between your foot and the edge of the pavement, between the right-hand far edge of your bumper and the next car. There has got to be, apparently, the perception and then everybody assumes that's the reality, of a distinct contour, not just between the man and out there, but between your automobile and the next automobile. There has to be a distinct impression, even in what appears to be the human mind, for someone to sit around and play with mathematics trying to develop some new understanding of the world of particles, someone attempting to create a more efficient air conditioning system. If they're doing it right now in their brain, in their imagination as they call it, playing with numbers or playing literally with trying to picture the present arrangements of the air conditioning system, there has to be a distinct perception of contours. It's where one thing stops and something else begins. There has to be. In the 3D world, what appears to be the ordinary conditions of life on this planet, contours would seem to be the easiest to distinguish if you're using only two objects at a time. Now that would appear to be true visually. Now I'm saying easiest, so don't let your own nervous system start mumbling and say, well, that's not limited to that. It's the easiest, and then we'll go from there, or you should be able to the most functional. How does life operate? That is, you can look. Right now you can look, if you're not following what I'm saying, and you can distinguish just visually. You can look up and distinguish between that easel, the holder that's got the markers, and the markers themselves. You can, right there, as within everybody's focal field of general vision, you can distinguish the contours. You can make out, assuming your side is something reasonable, between the markers, the things they're sitting in, and then the easel to which they're attached. But when it comes to the actual operations of life, how many things are involved, of course you've never analyzed it before now, that you visually, in the crudest sense, are having to operate at any given, just from second to second, moment to moment. The contours that are functionally important and necessary are generally limited to what? Those. That's it. Your car and the next car. Within a split second, that car can whiz out of sight and here comes another one. It's still this and that. It's still me and not me. The not me apparently changes. That I'm dealing now with man X, and he says, wait a second, I see my partner, and then it's man Y, but it's still the sensation that there are contours, the only contours that are important are between two. They are the easiest to distinguish. And I'm saying easiest, since there is no other word to even begin to point to what I'm talking about. I'm saying easiest on the basis that it is the most functional. That is all that is necessary, generally speaking, for a person to operate, not only in a very crude sense of driving his automobile down the freeway, but of even doing mathematics. All you got to do is count to two to do math. When you get up into some of the higher realms of mathematics, you have to go to school perhaps for 8 or 10 years and stretch your brain, but those of you surely know what I'm talking about. It still amounts to adding two things together, or subtracting two things together. You can be dealing with some new theory with subatomic particles. But the way the mind operates, all you've got to do is to be able to distinguish the contours between two things at any given time. They may shift very quickly into two more things, but that's all that's necessary. That is the function of ordinary life, that there be a distinct contour, that there be frontiers that are easily, precisely, blatantly distinguishable between two, and then you can immediately shift to another two. I don't guess I have to point out to all of you up-to-date people the basis of the, what do they call those machines that start with a C? Carburetors. Personal carburetor. A counting to two, a being able to distinguish between, at any given second, at any given moment, the contours, the distinct contours between two blanks, two things, two processes, two numbers, two people, two areas, two ideas. That will get you not only far, that will get you as far as life needs you to go. You may have to count to two, or you may have to keep distinguishing between two frontiers until your brain gets tired. It may be an almost endless process, but that's all that's necessary. If any of you, since I keep asking questions periodically, rhetorically, in that twee way about the what end, and I'm not about to stop now, but how about the many that seem to cover all pertinent and necessary perceptions of life. Like, how many directions do you damn need? Well, generally speaking, if we're going to talk in one area, up and down. If we're talking about the measurement of height, back and forth, side to side. That's all that's necessary. Then you can move on. If the up and down, if the height measurement doesn't get it, then at least you've got one of them. And you can go to the width. You can go to the depth. It is necessary that there be a perception by all people of distinct contours between all things, between all goods, and then what appears to be all services that are extant in life. There has got to be. If you will notice now, another of the coup de maîtrise, will somebody find me, what's an Albanian term for that? Since I only seem to have that one at my disposal, besides masterstroke, that there are institutions, and apparently the actions of the institutions in ordinary life, in the city life, that apparently have one thing as their goal, that I've already tried to get you to see as fallacious. It is specious. But there's another way to look at it, along the lines I'm talking about tonight. Such areas as religions, political beliefs, systems of philosophies. They apparently, very often, would be described as an attempt to bring people together, such as religions, to make everyone love his fellow man. Political ideologies, they would say, is to bring about a more consensus and for the welfare of all the people, or the majority of the people, etc. Can you see right quick that from another view, the purposes of such things is to blur the overlappings. It is to further confirm and distinguish the contours between this and that. The purpose of any religion, purpose of Christianity, is not, and those of you only around here a while, this has got nothing to do with religion. It just sounds like it. I just got to pick out things that you have some knowledge of to start with. The purpose of Christianity is not the brotherhood of man. The purpose of Christianity, or any other religion, Judaism, Buddhism, the purpose is not the brotherhood of man. The purpose is to draw a more distinct and to confirm, to reconfirm the distinction between the Christians and the non-Christians. That's the purpose. What's the purpose of the Vedamikams of all religions? Or in the figurative sense of all Bibles and of political persuasions. Our handbook. When you wave the handbook and say, we would all be better off, all of you people, if you would study the Bible and be Christians, or if you would study the Republican handbook and desert the Democrats and the Socialists and the Communists and be a Republican, we would all be happier. What is going on? It is life making men further, not holding up some book saying, this will bring us together. Here's the truth. It is not to bring to your attention the overlapping, like that we have more in common. I'm a natural Christian, say the guy waving the Bible. I am a Christian. We have so much in common, you don't understand. Some of you people out here listening to me in the world believe that you are Mediterranean Jews. You believe that you're Mideastern Arabs, and you're not. And they start this thing about it's the brotherhood of man. And it says so right here in our book, in the Bible, in the Koran. That is not what's going on. What is going on is to further blur, to reaffirm that humanity does not understand the overlapping. It is not what it appears to be. It is not to show that we have more in common, that there is some area of overlap. It is not. That's what they're saying. They've always said it. Man's got no choice. But what they're doing, all of these holy books, all of these holy ideas, all these political ideas, any philosophy, is to further confirm and to distinguish even more precisely the frontiers between this and that. It is a continuing, this is getting into more than I have time for on tonight's taping, a further distinction between, I know many of you keep clamoring, and I'm going to get into it, I think, soon, going to hear more and more on the great, wonderful world of language and grammar and rhetoric. I just made that up. I know you don't keep clamoring. It is to distinguish the difference, the rhetorical difference, the linguistic difference between the actor and the action. To distinguish, to confirm, reaffirm the frontiers between nouns and verbs, between people and apparently what they do, between people and apparently what they think. And I might add, for those of you on a short night like tonight, how about as, at least for tonight, the ultimate frontier, the ultimate contour? Would you consider that great human invention, the ever popular sensation of I, of individuality? What is the ultimate, or what might tonight on a Friday night appear to be the ultimate contour? I, me. That is the ultimate contour. The rest of it could sound like, to, if not ersatz, at least semi-ordinary people, as being some sort of philosophical flight of fancy, but now we're getting serious. There is a definite distinction. There is a workable, absolutely necessary frontier. That is between me and you, between me and all the dunderheads in the world. The concept of I, the sensation built into the nervous system of every creature that can talk, which narrows the field down considerably, leaving out Mr. Ed, of course. As a matter of fact, I think he is now a vice president with our local phone company. It was a joke. Don't tell me I'm knocking our public utilities. Do you see also that, in a sense, the most useful singular aspect of man to life itself is in his yellow circuit? That is the singular, observable aspect. And you can see, surely, that without clear distinction, without contours, of no doubt, the yellow circuit could not function, simply could not function. And therefore the very things that humanity, without any judgmental guessing on your part now, just the obvious aspects, the obvious manifestations and artifacts of the yellow circuit that man has done would be impossible. Nothing could be invented, there'd be no technology without clear distinctions of the yellow circuit, just the yellow circuit. If we could isolate the yellow circuits in that manner, and of course I can do it verbally in an ad hoc fashion for a second, but you must see thoughts, if they got all runny, like you'd left them out in the rain with the cake, if thoughts all ran together, you couldn't do anything. The yellow circuit would cease to exist. You might as well be an insurance salesman. Don't write me. You might as well be a rabbi then, or a priest. You might as well be ordinary. It'd all run together, and you'd feel like my cake is melted, except my cake is in my head. There has to be clear distinctions. There has to be a place that there is an automatic stop. It's not back to my stop method. There has to be an automatic stop. You've never analyzed it. No one has, because it is natural to the physical makeup of the operations of the brain itself that things only go so far. With the bell curve, the middle class, passing for sane, any idea you have, any thought you have only goes so far. That's why language is so interesting. It only goes so far. A sentence finally stops. Anything you think, again assuming that you're somewhere in the middle of the bell curve in the city, then you think in sentences that begin and stop. You don't plan, well, let's see, how long will I think this thought? You just think it. All right, just thinks you. The brain goes boom, and it shoots off one. It has a beginning and it has an end. It may not be satisfying, so we're not going to stand and go into that tonight. But it has a beginning and an end. It had some kind of sequential sentence structure to it. It stopped. That is a clear contour. It could not be otherwise. You do understand that. Simply, the yellow circuit could not operate. You couldn't remember a phone number. You could not dial a phone number. You could not think. It would just be a jumble. Can you take this a little further and see that this would be especially of interest to those attempting to play twee to what end? things arranged in such a way, and to what end are we possibly serving life? How about the absolute in a particular way? Necessity for very distinct and clear contours, speaking of language, but especially in those words that are meant to convey emotion. Now, did I stay long enough, those previous 2 or 3 minutes, trying to push the necessity of yellow circuit clearness, that there got to be distinctions verbally, even if it's just you thinking. There's got to be distinctions that you could not operate in any manner passing for intelligent. So I was trying to push you in the area to see that, all right, speaking strictly intellectually, if we can do so, clear contours between words, between ideas, are just, that is a part and parcel of being reasonably intelligent. Being sane even, by city definitions, by the crudest, by the most charitable city definition. But now, I was trying to set you up to see that in a sense, even beyond technical, even beyond what would appear to be almost strictly yellow circuit intellectual interests and activities, would be those words apparently. No drop apparently. You should know by now that that's always in there. Those words conveying human emotion, they have got to have even more precise, more distinct contours. And I don't mean precise in some manner to convey correctness. What I mean is, good and evil can't overlap. You know that, I know that. Love and hate can't overlap. No way. Except for a strange thing. Except for a strange thing. When you get beyond the nouns of the words themselves, like, all right, surely that would be a place to start it. Those of you who are following now, I guess I'll have to back up right quick. The absolute necessity for distinct contours and frontiers between words, apparently, words describing and conveying human emotion. Now you might say, now you could fool around and let some, if you're sitting here trying to imagine a new equation, or you're trying to find a prime number even beyond what the greatest computer has done, and you're intellectually sitting around drinking some Cafe Correcto, some triple coffee and sitting up all night, and you're trying to, in your head, go to the furthest prime number anybody's ever done. All right, and things are getting a little blurred, and you lose your place. You know, it could be a small heartbreak, but you know, you'll live, right? But that is, in other words, what appears to be technical, intellectual areas. They can get a little blurry, but now wait. We cannot tolerate, think about it personally, you cannot tolerate that kind of blurred contours between love and hate. Now think about it. I got a second, think about it. Somebody that you really hate. I mean, somebody that you've hated for years, and you like to, when you're not doing anything, you just like to, for no reason, think about them again, about how much you hate them. You know, how all the dreams that if the circumstance was right, you had the nerve, all the torturous things you would do to them, all the despicable pictures you have. You can't do that and then go, well, no, wait a minute. And you start letting it creep in a little bit. You can't do that. You can't think when it's Mother's Day and you turn on the TV and they're having a Mother's Day parade, you know, in Cleveland. And suddenly you have a picture of your dear mother and think, oh, I love her. And of course, all the dirty, despicable things she's done to you. But right then, if you're going to think, or if you turn around to somebody and say, did I send my mother a card, dear? I mean, I love the dear woman so. It's got to be clear. Do you understand? I'm not trying to be funny. There has got to be a clear distinction. Our words conveying human emotion would be even more distracting, disquieting, upsetting than periodic low-level mistakes in fairly intellectual affairs. It would be even worse. You could get by making a slight mistake in putting together a new air conditioning system. The world will survive that, obviously. They do it all the time. Or you make a mistake. It blurs the distinction between what would be the best way to increase the horsepower of this engine this year in the Buick over last year. And before computers, at least, building engines, I assume most of you know, was hit or miss. It was their best guess based upon the past. And so they put it together, and the engine turns out to be a dud this year. And so the Buick sales go down a little bit. You know, General Motors is like the third largest country in the world based on their gross. You know, so General Motors loses a few bucks this year, $100 million, big deal. The world survives it. Even if you had one of them, you survive it. But the world would not survive without clear distinctions between love and hate, between propriety and impropriety, between goodness, whether it would be in a religious context or otherwise. That there are right ways to treat people, right attitudes to have, and there are wrong attitudes. In fact, the most common, or one of the most common denunciations from one part of life's body to another throughout history, as you should know, is some group, under whatever guise. It could be those worshiping the mystery religions back in Grecian times, or it could be Jews, it could be Catholics now, it could be anybody, them denouncing not simply other religions. That's enough to say, oh, shame on those people that got the wrong idea. But part of life's body will even make a stronger denunciation of what? Those who apparently have no religion. That is, those who do not have a clear distinction. That you'd be better off to be a heathen, an infidel, because I might be able to recruit you. Just because, you know, if you are a Christian and I'm a Muslim, at least you're better off than somebody that's got no religion, because I can talk to you. You got some idea of a singular God, monolithic religion. I might be able to deal with you. But, oh, those humanists, I guess, well, if they had a term back in Grecian time, those kind of people who have no clear distinction between them and the gods, they're the kind of people that would tell you that, hey, morality, if they had this term back in Grecian times, I'm sure they had some version, that morality is situational. That this idea, as they say, these liberals, these humanists, these non-blanks, these non-religious people, they say there is no real good and evil. They're going to be our downfall. If we don't watch it, the goddamn Romans will take over, and they'll get all, you know, the biggest chapters in history, and we'll be done for it. And it's going on today. You should know that. Ministers, it's quite prevalent in our part of the life's body. These down-home Protestants, just in sort of a new version of it, saying that the worst thing is not other religions, not simply Muslims and Buddhists and those other strange people. It's people right here in our midst that believe in this kind of situational ethics. They got no real sense of morality. They say, oh, what's a little pornography? You know, what's a little drinking? And they tremble and they shake a Bible, some holy book. There has got to be, in the words that convey emotions, an extremely sensitive and distinct line. The contours have got to be drawn, and they have got to be, without a doubt, clear and distinct to the majority of people in the city, on this planet, in life's body. The curious thing, in case you thought I forgot, that some of you already laughed, that your little nervous system had already jumped. A couple of you, I could hear it jump correctly. A curious thing, that humans, the human nervous system in the city, the majority of humans, if I in some way was foolish enough to try to describe this to humanity, would say, yeah, I hear what you're saying. And it's true. There has got to be a distinction between good and evil, or civilization would collapse. Our societies, of whatever nature, whatever race, whatever religion, they would fall apart unless there were clear distinctions between right and wrong and love and hate. Right and wrong, we can say, would be apparently more on a cultural, citywide level, and then love and hate would seem to be more individual. And whether it be love and hate of a sexual nature between people, or love and hate between you and your neighbors, whether you can tolerate them, the people down the block. So humanity's nervous system would say, yes, there has got to be such a distinction, and there is, it would say, that there is a difference between love and hate. A clear difference. I know what it is. Curious thing I started to point out to you 3 or 4 minutes ago. A curious thing, a very large number of those people in the city, if they were questioned in another way, no great trickery on my part, questioned another way, would very easily admit that, yeah, that's true, that there is a absolute distinction between love and hate, and then I snuck up on them, maybe got a beer or two in them, tricked them a little bit, just talked to them another way, they would say, without any trickery, they would say, something's wrong because it ain't satisfying. They would first say, yes, there is a distinction. There is no doubt love and hate are not in-laws. Love and hate do not overlap. And yet, very easily, ordinary people go, something's fishy about that. The something fishy is there is no such thing through experience on anybody's part as complete love. Anybody you've ever loved, anybody that you said, I love, you stood in front of a judge, a priest, a rabbi, and you said, I love you. I love you now, I love you forever, I love you with all my heart. And another woman walks by, you know I'll say, I love you, I love you, I love you. And the percentage of murders in this country, all over the world, between lovers, it's way over 50%. Well, you got to include family. Way over 50%. So through experience, people know on a non-functional, a non-useful level, that this distinction is not completely operational, at least in their case. That if I push it a little further, if I must, I could get ordinary people, large numbers of them, if I first got them to say, yes, there is a distinction between love and hate. Talking about the necessity for our human speech to precisely define the difference and to draw a line between aspects of human emotion. Yeah, I follow you. All right, love and hate's a great example. There is a line. But a great deal of effort I get them to go, you know there's not. There's not. A few minutes ago, you're right, I said there was, and I fully believed it. But there's not. Because half the people I hate, and for you just talk to me a few minutes, the guy I keep talking about that I remember that I hate so much, the truth is, through experience, if you had that kind of 4D continuing memory, there's been people that you hated, some in-law, some old relative that you hated, you strangled them, and all kinds of shit in your memory, and then suddenly, one day at a funeral, you're brought together, and you and that person look at each other, and you go, and you run and grab him. It's like it never existed. Right then, maybe later, you know, you get back away from him, and somebody says, I thought you and so-and-so had a fallout. And you go, yeah, that's true. I guess I got overcome by the emotions of the moment. That son of a bitch, the way he treated me. I was just trying to be nice. I didn't want to make a stir there at the funeral. It is simply the experience that human emotions, even the emotions, the sensations of animals, we got that in common. No, I'm not going. There is no absolute clear distinction in human emotion. Don't try drawing distinction. I don't have time to go into any parallel on a lower level. Human emotion, that which seems to be human emotion, me using love, the dichotomy of love and hate as being perhaps the ultimate on an individual level, there has to be the verbal sensation, the verbal belief, the verbal acceptance that words are drawing a clear contour between those two extremes, between all human emotions. It does draw it, people say it draws it, and experience tells them otherwise, that they overlap. And if you want to push the individual area just a little bit further, it's the whole idea, religiously, philosophically, but primarily religiously, is the idea that there is good and evil. And our Bible, our Quran, our holy book, the words of our great leader, right here points them out. You know, you can't eat meat on Thursday. You can't drink beer on Saturday. You know, it's right here. It's clear. And if you do these things, it is evil. It is forbidden. There is a clear distinction. So what are these doing? They're not designed to make people overlap. They're not designed for people to see that there's an overlap. It is to further support I plus not I. To further support the sensation that I stopped somewhere, that there is an I, there is a me in here, there is an inner reality, and then there's out there. And there's a distinction. I was pointing out night before last some of the things that have passed for all kinds of weird, spooky, metaphysical, religious, miraculous stuff going on throughout the history, which is not spooky, inexplicable, extraordinary, if you understand that everything overlaps. There is no such clear distinction between that figure and the red part I drew out there. I just drew that. Anybody can draw that. Any fool can stand and say, all right, you're not me, because I can hit you. I can feel the difference between the end of my knuckles and the beginning of your chin. Plus, I'm a Republican and you're a Democrat, or I'm a Jew and you're a Catholic. Plus, I'm pretty intelligent, whereas you're a dickhead. There is a clear distinction. What if what I'm trying to suggest to you, if not tell you, it all overlaps. Some of you got glimpses of it a couple of nights ago when I was drawing the necessity of the overlapping of vision to bring about stereoscopic sight. Everybody can see that. You should have already known that. And then for me to point out in what appeared to be a more metaphysical, metaphorical vein, that you have got to be able to see where conflicting opinions in you, conflicting beliefs. That, yeah, sometimes I hate my mother. I got to admit that. And sometimes I love my mother. You know, what do you make of that? Boy, am I an idiot. Boy, do I need analysis. Boy, am I this or that. To them, they're to human consciousness, not this individual I was playing his part, because everybody's got some of that, if you're human. What cannot be conceived is that there is a distinction drawn in the human nervous system, or else humans could not operate. They would not be serving their purpose. There is a distinction drawn, and thus it sets up what appears to be a problem. That sometimes I hate my mother, and sometimes I love my mother. In fact, I hate myself when I remember that I hate my mother. And I can't love myself when I'm hating my mother. But then sometimes I can't help myself of hating my mother, or my wife, my husband, my children. There is, and the human nervous system, as though you had drawn a line down some of the diagrams I used to draw in the human nervous system, but physically, through the nervous system, through the brain itself, you might as well have drawn a line, a contour, was the purpose of my cartoon. It is that way the nervous system would not function. It would not isolate in such a way that you would have the continuing sensation of breathing in and breathing out, a you, a Fred, or a Mary. It takes extraordinary sight to see that everything's overlapped. To see that there is no distinction between Fred and Mary. Not that clear, not that distinct. Of course, if you can see like that, you also see the city distinction. You see the apparent frontiers. I don't mean that suddenly everything runs together. But you see that it all overlaps. And you see that that which other people never see or initially, that which other people ignore, pass off as quaint, unbelievable, and of course totally absurd, is simply where things are overlapping and they can't see it. Turn the tape. Can you go ahead? Tell me, have another one. Tell me when it's, I guess, what, 8:15? Okay. Show them the background. Show them a good time. All right, everyone, you can put your little heads on your little desk for just a minute. But don't spit up. I started saying, make sure you don't put your fingers in the inkwell, and I thought, Jesus, hardly any of you know what an inkwell is. And I read about it. I don't remember it. You ready? Well, now let's go into something more pleasant, an upsetting update. This is so potentially upsetting that I'll do it tonight since I don't have much time. In case you don't think I ever know what I'm doing. The update is, I'm sure that all of you who have been around when it was said remember this, even if you don't know why. That I pointed out that if you do not like something, you won't believe it. Anyone who has any business being here remembers that, even if I never mention it again. And I'm not going to tell you why. You ponder it. Any nervous system that ever hears that realizes it's not philosophical, it's not psychological, it's not even verbal, it's upsetting. So, I want to update the upset. And it is thusly. Is any one you don't like, you won't believe. Let me start at the simple level right quick, since we really got to be quick. If you believe you're out seeking something, the obvious thing, I guess, with a erstwhile group such as you would have been looking for some kind of leader, teacher. If you run across somebody, what if you heard about some guy, read his books or her books, and You find out that he had a group somewhere in some city. And you went there, and you walked in, and you'd already read enough and heard enough, and you thought, this is exactly, this is the closest of my own thought processes, my own little stirrings of my little bitty heart. All the things I think I've been looking for. This guy, this woman is obviously of the same nature. This is it, I got to go. And you got there, just trust me, this is not hard to imagine. You got there, and you went in, there was a meeting, something open to the public, or new attendees coming, and you go once or twice, or maybe just right off the bat, and you just don't like him. I don't mean just casually. The kind of thing that is native, the kind of thing that is natural to Homo erectus, to run across many other people that just, and I say on sight, again, it's even more than that, because you're already overlapping before you see the person. But apparently, on sight, you walk in, and forget analyzing. There is no way to analyze it. There's no purpose in it. It is simply, you don't like the person. And you can look off. You could try and sit there and go, Jesus, I sold everything I had, and I traveled here. I was determined that I thought this was it. But, what is it? You could try to think, does he remind me of somebody? Do I just not like the way he acts? Is his tone of voice? What is it? Doesn't matter. If you don't like him, if you don't like someone, you won't believe him. That's not upsetting. That doesn't explain a lot in ways that are of no great consequence. I could point out some obvious examples. I could point out some almost instant personal examples that some of you have been involved with, which is not the point of this. But if you don't like someone, you got no choice. You won't believe them. And I could take my fictitious little scene I made up and say the person leaves. And some of the people there that were part of that organization went, hey, aren't you the guy that wrote to us several times and moved here and sold all your stuff? And you go, yeah. And you say, well, you look like you're leaving. The meeting's not over. Now, I'm, of course, stretching reality a little bit, but this could occur in a manner not dissimilar to my verbal description. And you go, I don't know what to tell you. I am heartbroken. I'm almost to the point of contemplating suicide. I thought this was it, but there's something about that guy. I can't sit in that room any longer. You mean you don't like him? I believe that covers it. Well, how about, well, wait a minute. Aren't you the guy that read all of his books? Yeah. Didn't you guy wrote us a voluminous mail about how much that it meant to you and that you wanted everything he'd ever written? Yeah, that was me. But, well, wait a minute. Well, it doesn't mean that you actually have to go, does it? And you might go, I think it does. Well, you'll keep in touch and maybe keep reading his books, won't you? I don't believe I can. If you don't like someone, you won't believe them. That is a fact. In the city, like everything else, is of no great consequence, but if any of you want to stretch this a little further, the kind of things oftentimes that sociologically, psychologically, historically in the city, and human events that seem inexplicable, here's another thing that you can take and look through, and there are many things that I don't have time tonight to go into, historical events, evidently on a large scale, and in your life on a smaller scale, that if you look at that way, it goes, oh, things that people say they can't understand how this happened, how people could be blind to the truth, some other human. How could Bunky Odom have met Galileo at that time? We have historical proof. And the man with his background, and Galileo sit there and pointed out to him all the experiments that he had made in optics. And this guy, Bunky, we all know how smart he was from some of these other writings. Bunky went, I thought I was interested in this new field of optics. But what was Galileo's first name? Well, that was his first name, wasn't it? He said, Galileo, I don't know why, but I don't like you. And I can't believe in this shit. And that was the only thing that kept Bunky from being a great historical figure. Think about it. There was more to it than that little joke. That is a fact. In the city, it doesn't matter. People's nervous system is not arranged to deal with this information. They just finds it irrelevant, even if it heard what I was saying, and even if I made somebody in the city go, ha, ha, ha. Then it's gone. Because it cannot be true. That cannot be a real contour in city consciousness. It cannot be that the truth, something useful, pertinent information exists, and somebody has it, and simply because I don't like them, and I hear them say it, but I don't like them, and I hear it in a sense, I can go, yeah, all right. Sequentially, logically, I know what you're saying. I don't believe, I can't do it. I can't accept it. And you're telling me that's on the basis that I simply didn't like the person? That is not going to happen in city consciousness. Now, it's not the way life is wired up. Now, as always, forget about Bunky and Galileo because they forgot about you. The inner personal use of this. Who are you going to call when you want something? And don't say Ghostbusters. Who are you going to believe? Forget about me right now, because those of you that have been around and sort of, as I used to say, that are irreversibly addicted to this, you don't have to like me. I've never given any question. I don't want to know. It's irrelevant. But we'll say that everybody that sticks with this, you are not part of some distinction, some great frontier of really not liking me enough to interfere. So we'll assume that. So bypass the idea that we're talking about me and you, which started off that way, and it still would be pertinent if you hadn't already gotten past, if you were not already wired up to overlap in some way. Now, internally, other than me, you trying to develop a new part of your nervous system, trying to change, trying to grow, not trying to reform, not trying to alter, not trying to back up. Trying to do that, there ultimately, as many of you already can feel though in yourselves, there ultimately has to be a piece of you active in this. Something has to happen. Either that, or I'm going to have to put 300 or 400 people in one of these back papooses and I'm carrying you to the grave, which I'm not going to do. Because I don't believe that. See, because I don't like it and I don't believe it. That is, I don't believe I'm going to have to do that. I don't believe that they're going to make me do that. The point being, you do understand this. There has to be, and there is a possibility in you, of something in you begins to ignite, and that there is some amount of dominance, new dominance in you, some new leadership. There is some new part of you that wants to take the old part and dance. There's some part of you now, not simply wanting to make reference to the past, but attempting to truly look to the future, to attempt to do this, whatever the hell it is. In other words, there's someone begins in you, anew, to tell you stuff. If you don't like him or her, you won't believe it. Now, real quick, at least you think, well, does that mean that the possibility of some new aspect of me will develop that I don't like? I said I'm in a hurry. Look at it this way. A prime example of the ultimate power of feelings, that is, I don't like something, I don't like someone. The ultimate power of feelings over even self-serving, self-preserving knowledge. It'll take a back seat every time when you get to that ultimate extreme when ordinary city reality is about to turn the corner. That is, remember my example, that you believed that you'd gone somewhere, and I wasn't making that as a facetious story, that you went somewhere that this is the information I want, and you get there and you don't like the apparent source. That is, you don't like the someone that seems to be giving out the information. You can't believe it. Self-serving knowledge, self-preserving knowledge, knowledge that apparently would be of great benefit to you. There's no contest. There is no arm wrestling between that and feeling. It should make somewhere around the corner, if you can get there, at least go around for a second and go, wow. No matter how important the information seems, no matter how pertinent and pressing, how personally important the data may be, if you don't like it, once you hear it in a certain way, or if you don't like the source, the person, the one, when I said someone, if you don't like them, you can holler forever. Your own nervous system may be wired up to say, I'm only interested in what they used to call it, the truth. I am only interested in information. I'm a big boy or girl, I can take it. I want the truth. I want to be clinical. If there's some kind of secret data floating around this planet, I want it. I don't care the cost to me personally, and I don't mean in dollars. I mean my self-image, my attitude toward myself. I'm prepared to give it up. You have to say that. Many people's nervous system has to say that because they think there is a distinct contour between what I will accept, what I'll believe. I'll know the truth. I'll know important information when I hear it. And don't give me any kind of crap that you're going to say, all right, the secret's going to come out. I'm going to finally learn the secret. And you're going to say, if I don't like it when I hear it, then I won't believe it. I think it was me that said that. That can't be true. No. Maybe that could be. They're kind of run-of-the-mill Kmart intellectuals. They might be that way, but not yours truly. I'll accept it. I want it. You can say you want it all you want to, but you can't accept it. If you don't like it, you won't believe it. If you don't like someone, you won't believe it. And the reason I updated it tonight is I mentioned this once, and I don't think anybody heard anything of any pertinence. I didn't speak on it. People are not wired up initially, any of you. You're not wired up in some way to, although you say so and you believe so. That's why most of you ended up here. Through whatever trickery or drugs I seem to have gotten you here. I always say that, but how do I know? Here's what's weird. You know, get close to the impossibility factor. How do we know that all of you people, because you weren't aware of it, you hypnotized and drugged me and got me here? It seems like it's me and I got you here and in other cities. But how about the other cities? They got me coming down here and buying these cameras and doing this filming and sending it out to them. You people tricked me and got me here. Now back to the subject. It is not that people are looking for information, or the truth as they used to call it. But they're not looking for that. What they're looking for is a person with it. Do you remember? It's been, I don't know, 3 or 4 weeks ago I mentioned that, and it just went through, and nobody even... But nobody wants that. That's why it seems so frustrating, as all of you have been through to some degree, to find a book, and they'll start reading and think, this is it. Maybe just the first page, this is it, this is it. And you keep flipping to find where it is, and you turn over the back or somewhere in the intro or on the flap, and it says, you know, the great works of so-and-so, the first time it's been reprinted since his death, and you go, oh, God. Again. That is, the person died, and this is it. Because that's the way it's supposed to work in the city. Because people don't want the information. They do not want some great truth. They say they do. But they're leaving out the part. They want the person that's got it. Because it's not just something that's going to float around. There is no clear distinction. There is no frontier. Although people believe it, there is the truth, or there is information that would be revealing, illuminating, if not freeing. And I want it. No, you don't. The nervous system is not that way. The nervous system has another order of attraction and use of the difference between goods and services. You don't want information. You want the person that's got that information. You may have some idea, right or wrong, of what this information is. But you don't want the information. That's why books won't get it. And of course, that's why there's only books available in the city, so they won't get it. And that's why when you find a book even that seems to have information that's close to what you want, the guy that wrote the book's dead. Always. Or else he's senile. Or else he's in jail now. Back to the internal use. If you don't like what appears to be the source of this, whether it be me or now whether it seems to be coming out of you, you won't believe it. And you should find it interesting. You should find it to be topographically interesting again on the basis as to what ends are things arranged this way, that the very areas that should be most distinct would be in the areas of knowledge. It would seem to be of importance. I believe that's what I was after when I started this, speaking for you. I believe that that is now what I am attempting to collect, what I need more of, and yet something as simple from one viewpoint as I find what I'm just convinced for a moment, for a year, until I get there, that this is not just the info, this is the source of it. In other words, I'm going to find the man that's got it. And you get there and you don't like him, and it's all over. Feeling. The feeling of a clear distinction that you can't even verbalize necessarily. Just, I don't like it. I don't like the information, or I don't like the source of the information. I can't accept it. I can't believe it. And that's the end of it. Note again. And, a lot of my friends were Catholic. Later in life, I thought, well, hell, I'll look into it. But I go in there and I think, wait a minute, a guy's going to talk to me about morality, and it's a guy dressed up in a dress that's never had any sex. I don't like those people. That is, I thought I was interested in the ideas, but I don't like that. Everywhere you look, there seems to be always something that keeps anybody from completely liking what either seems to be the information, the services, the verbs, or what seems to be the source of it, what would apparently be the original nouns, the goods in which these services are dealing, the source of it, the person. Well, let's see. How about what appears to be the clear distinctions sometimes between it gets through with the tape, and sometimes I'll say bye or ciao or so long or just cut it. And there seems to be a distinction between the tapes that come in on 7:16 out of town and 7:18 and 7:22. So I was going to play like that. There's a distinction coming up that we're about to run out of time to do the taping. So I'll play along. How about another one before I drag it into what will be next time? 7:22? Yeah. Another absolute jewel that is connected with this. Maybe this will drag me into the next time we tape. That'd be a good excursion. Try and remember the last thing I say tonight and check and see if I can start off there 3 nights from now without making any notes or anything. See, accidents could happen. You know, remember the 1,000 monkeys and the typewriters? As if we needed another version of Moby Dick. I can hardly wait. Another absolute jewel taking place. Going on now. There's a big one a couple of weeks ago, but it's been going on throughout history. And that is the tyrannical ruler somewhere. Remembering all you people, my metaphorical, if not burlesque version of man as a state, and city consciousness, and rulers, tyrants, and kings being something else. But a absolute jewel is the tyrannical rulers all over the world giving their people that they have subjugated a Freedom Day to celebrate. The absolute tightest, most tyrannical societies and little groups of people in the world. If you don't know this, surely you do. But they all have some version of their Liberation Day, their Freedom Day. That is when he took over from some other tyrant. Except they do not do it. The people do not get out and walk through Red Square or through some little village in Africa or in Peru, Chile. They do not get out there. You do not have hundreds or hundreds of thousands of these people marching with little cynical, sarcastic smiles on their bills. Now, away from it, you can. And in all of these societies, since that we're only talking about the bell curve, and there's always room, there's got to be room or the thing would die, room for little chips to come off the machine. So in that society, they may have left and gone across the border. You do have reporters and social critics hollering, "What a farce! What a farce!" I don't know all that. Or you not being there. You can say, look at Russian May Day, or them celebrating in China, and thinking, what? Hundreds of thousands of people, and they spend 1/10 of their gross national product this year on running this damn big parade, and all these children and people waving flags, hollering, "Hooray for freedom!" And you're thinking, there's reports, and you accept it's true, and I'm not saying it's not, that if you don't go out there and march in the parade waving for freedom, they shoot you. And you think, what kind of freedom is this? But you missed it. You missed it. You missed it. Everywhere in the world, there's a Freedom Day. And the more it is run by a tight-fisted tyrant, jump right quick from apparent out there now to somewhere else. The more it is run, apparently as a very tight-fisted, under tight-fisted leadership, the more vehemently they seem to celebrate the Freedom Day. Isn't that delightful? And isn't it wonderful that it has absolutely no pertinence to you personally, internally? None, right? None to all humans, everywhere, under every political organization, every part of life's body, they all have a Freedom Day. And thank God it's not some kind of mass hysteria, not some kind of collective delusion. No. And of course, thank God it has no pertinence to you personally. But let me ask you a musical question. Let us just say, for the sake of 3D reality, for the sake of drawing clear contours and distinctions, that you're next door to a tyrannically run country, the tribe next door, the state next door, and you see them out there once a year on Freedom Day, marching, and you know, because they keep slipping over the border, people trying to get away and getting shot, you know that compared to you, your concept, the way you're wired up of what freedom is, they've got none. And so, let us say that you find this to be open to a great deal of criticism. Now let me ask you, do the people being given this day to celebrate, this Freedom Day, does that make the leader more likable, hence believable? Although you from outside saying, wait a minute, the people involved with this, they can't believe that. And yet you peer through the trees over there through your binoculars, and you see them every year, all marching. You don't see people sarcastic. You don't see people holding flags and secretly giving the leader the finger. You see them actually marching and waving, hooray for our leader, and hooray for freedom, thank God for him. You know, all we remember before him was, perhaps it doesn't matter, they may remember the guy that he took over from, the previous tyrant. Oh, what a bad tyrant. Not a good tyrant like ours, or it may now just be part of dim, hoary history, such as you can't really remember what happened to you years and years ago. You just kind of grew up, and you went through your teen years, and you didn't get arrested for any serious felonies, and you kind of lived through it, but it's like, well, there was a tyrant or somebody involved. You know, his middle name was H, Hormones, but he kind of calmed down, and you're not sure who the original tyrant was. But thank God I'm over that. You know, later in life, people can think, well, thank God I got through the middle-age crazes. Thank God I got through marrying 2 women every year. I finally gave up, you know, I had 7 wives, 7 husbands. I got over such as that. But having the day of celebration, Freedom Day, does that by any chance make even a tyrant more likable and hence believable? When he talks about freedom, when from another view you can say, the person outside say, you people, you're idiots. He does have you drugged. You're fools. He keeps talking about freedom. He keeps saying, well, hey, just think, it's only 364 more days till we can celebrate again. And all the people jump up and down and they holler. And you think you're nuts. Now, forget about states and all that. Think about your fellow man. How can my neighbor, how can my brother-in-law, how can my husband, how can my first wife, how can so-and-so live like that? They keep saying that they know what they're doing. They keep saying that they're intelligent and that they're somebody. And they're idiots. They must be insane. How do they keep a job? It frightens me sometimes to think I live next to this person, or I live with this person, or that she was my mother, or he was my father. You don't understand. Everybody celebrates Freedom Day. And nobody's sarcastic about themselves. I'm the only person you ever met that can apparently do that and speak for me and you, or have Kyrute do it. People do not walk in the mirror and look at themselves and laugh. No, they can do it sarcastically, but remember, that ain't what we're talking about. In the city, people see nothing funny about being captive. People see nothing funny about being pushed at the end of a rifle made to go out and participate in Freedom Day. Nobody sees anything whatsoever funny. Nothing. And it's hilarious. Well, I was going to leave with a kind of allegorical, perhaps even a physical demonstration of the lack of distinct. Did the tape just slip? Did it get out of focus? Did it get all fuzzy? Wait a minute, is this Monday's night? Have I started the new tape? Did we in some way on Friday just kind of, I don't know, overlap into Nah, well, as I started